Okay, so imagine for a moment you are a manager or team lead with a team working under you. Now imagine you've created a checklist to measure your company culture, and everyone on your team is marking off boxes like everyone at work is friends, there's a lot of fun activities to do like having a foosball table, you have staff events outside of work hours, you get cake for people every month, you have an open door policy. So seeing all of these things checked off, you would probably want to feel like everything is going pretty well, right? Now imagine that your team submits their yearly report on culture and how everything is going, and you find that despite nobody coming in to tell you that there's a problem with culture, everyone seems to have a problem with culture. What's that about? Hey everybody, my name is Zach, and today, yes, we are talking about company culture. So first, I want to talk about what company culture is not. So the list that I mentioned in the cold open today, the sorts of things that you would think make a good culture, or you hear about a place with good culture having. Those activities again, having birthday cake, having foosball. These are things that can be found in a place with good culture, but they can also be found in a place with bad culture. I personally have worked at a place that said that they had great company culture, they had all of these fun events and things and perks at work, and yet people still gossiped about it, they still had really bad ratings on like Glassdoor. So despite how important they said culture was to them, the consensus, at least on my team at that time, was that what was actually happening is that they were buying culture. Now when I say buying culture, what I mean is that instead of valuing employees and their ideas and having this level of trust that's needed, they are bringing in the things that they think create culture. So I don't know about you, but I would much rather work at a place where I feel valued than a place that I don't feel valued and get cake. Now bonus points if your employees feel valued and also get cake. The one that I hear the most off of my earlier list is that the employees are friends, so you have a great culture. Employees will be friends if you have a good culture, yes, but employees will also make friends with people that they have common enemies of. So if your employees all feel like they are not getting a say, they're going to talk about that, not with you because you don't give them a say, but with each other. And that is one of the ways that employees end up creating something of a toxic culture with that kind of bottom level gossip. Let's go over some signs that your company culture needs improvement. 1, the managers and team leads don't receive any feedback from the team. 2, the employees on your team complain about changes anytime they come up. 3, your employees gossip about these sorts of changes, they gossip about leadership, managers, each other. 4, you have high turnover rates. People don't want to stay there. 5, you have a lot of negative reviews on employee sites like Glassdoor. And 6, your employees are not openly with you or with the rest of the team, openly discussing ways to improve things. Now I want to touch quickly on toxic employees because I think I'm going to have to create a whole other article for that. Even if you had the absolute perfect culture, there are still people who are not going to be a culture fit. So it's not your job, once culture is in a great place, to worry about individuals that are still having problems. There are going to be cases where people are not the right fit. So that is something that you should be aware of and looking out for. One thing that I want you to be very careful about in these situations is that I've seen a lot of managers' response to these kind of toxic tendencies like lots of gossip. The response to it is to try to further police this gossip. In any situation that I've seen this, it has the opposite effect. All you're going to do is make your employees get better at talking bad about you and the company and their own teammates without getting caught. If you're not addressing why they're having these conversations, you're not going to stop them. So let's then talk about what a good company culture needs. So I want to read this quote to you from Ed Catmull, who is the writer of the book I better check my notes so I don't get it wrong. Creativity Inc. He was also the president at Pixar Animation and Disney Animation, Studios. So his quote is, I'll read it verbatim, "Unleashing creativity requires that we loosen the controls, accept risk, trust our colleagues, work to clear the path for them, and pay attention to anything that creates fear." So this quote to me is incredibly enlightening. Now, when you read this, don't look at the phrase unleashing creativity and think, my team doesn't need to worry about that because we're not doing creative things like animation. Just think of unleashing creativity as giving your team the ability to want to improve and think of creative ways to do so. So let's go through this quote kind of step by step. So number one was loosen the controls. So we've all had managers that like things done their way. This could be for any number of reasons, like they're particular, they feel that when their ideas are criticized, they're being criticized, they've done things for a certain way, they feel like they know more than their employees, so their employees should just do what they're told. What ends up happening is that employees create a situation in which they don't feel like their ideas are valued at all. So they might be doing this thing that they don't understand why they're doing it, only because the manager says that that's how it's supposed to be done. They have ways to improve it, but they know that anything that they bring up is going to be shut down immediately. It's too often that these ideas are also coupled with personal egos. So if a manager makes a ruling and employees don't follow it or they criticize it, some managers or team leads will feel that they are being criticized rather than their idea being criticized. And those are extremely different things. When you let your team take control and ownership of their own work, you're going to be amazed at what a difference you'll see in the amount of ideas that are coming forward, the amount of positive change that's going to improve your business like never before. Number two was accept risk. So in Ed Catmull's book, he uses a reference of learning to ride a bike. So when we learn to ride a bike, you get on it, you fall over, you get back on it. We all know about that. Most of us hopefully learned how to ride a bike. If you didn't, no judgment. Now imagine you were going to ride a bike for the first time and the expectation was that you got up, rode perfectly, and didn't fall over. Now imagine that you felt that you were going to get in trouble or lose privileges if you couldn't learn how to ride your bike the first time. This exact same thing can be applied to any type of learning in business. You can't expect to try something new and get it right the first time or get it right every time. We need to understand that we're going to make mistakes whenever something is new or novel and we're trying to figure it out. And not only should we not avoid those mistakes, but we should go out of our way to welcome those mistakes because those things are what's going to show us what still needs to be improved, what needs to be worked on. If there's a mistake that keeps happening, why is that? What sort of rules can we write to make sure that going forward this same mistake doesn't happen again? And if it does, we need to look at it. Again, it's just every mistake is an amazing opportunity to further refine how to do things best. So let your team fall off that bike, help them get back up on it, and even better, give them tips for how to improve their riding the next time. Number three was trust our colleagues. So trust is I almost said buzzword, not a buzzword, could be. Trust is a word that I cannot stress the importance of enough. Now I'm not talking about just an employer trusting an employee, I'm talking about employees trusting employers, employers trusting other employers, managers trusting managers, trusting employees, trusting each other, trusting departments. For a great culture to happen, everyone needs to be able to trust everyone. And so to give you sort of a better example of this, if I have an idea that I would like to see take place in the workplace, something new and innovative, I need to know that when I bring it to my superior, that even if it's not the best idea, rather than shutting me down and telling me no, we're going to discuss it openly. I need to know that I can bring it to my team in a presentation after and not have the team grumble and moan and make me feel almost embarrassed to bring up this idea because people are unhappy with me personally for trying to make change. I need to know that I can go to another department and not have to explain why we're making new changes and how it's, affecting what they're doing as if it's something that's negative to them. People, of course, don't like change But when it is an expectation that change is going to continue to happen in the business, the trust kind of plays in, where we need to know, again, that everyone is willing to, play ball with every idea that comes forward, even though there's no way that every idea can be seen to fruition. And it's silly to think that they would, and that sort of thinking actually makes people not want to bring up ideas, because they're like, if I get told no, or if the team doesn't like this, like, I'm going to look stupid. No, bring forward every idea you can think of. Number 4 was work to clear the path for them. So all of the things that I've mentioned so far, and everything that I'm going to continue to mention, you as a team lead, manager, boss, whatever you call yourself, it is your job to make sure that all of these barriers are being analyzed, worked on, and improved. So you have to sit and think to yourself, what can you do to make sure that your employees are trying new things, want to try new things, feel that their ideas are not only valued but mandatory. If someone has a good idea, there should be nothing stopping them from wanting to bring it forward and make that change. That sort of motivation is crazy powerful, but as soon as people feel like they can't follow through on that motivation, so many ideas that you would never even imagine could have happened to improve your business will just disappear. So work really, really hard to make sure that there is nothing in the way of this process. And number 5, to tie it all up, pay attention to anything that creates fear. So just like trust, fear is another really important word to pay attention to. If I bring an idea to a boss and they say no to me, I might have fear the next time that I'm going to get told no again. If I get rejected or I feel like they're defensive, I actually did have a boss for a very short time that really at the start liked the idea that I was bringing new ideas to him, but the more I brought new ideas to him and things that I felt could be improved, he started to take it personally. So I would be like, can we try out this new method for responding to emails? And he'd be like, oh, why? Is there something wrong with the way we respond to emails now? Like it felt more and more that I was personally attacking him rather than the ideas. Now, as I mentioned, this was a very short relationship between this boss and I, but I'm certain that if that had kept happening, I would have kept building up that fear that, am I annoying him? Am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get fired for bringing up ideas if they're upsetting him? That fear would absolutely have stopped me from bringing up new ideas. And the bigger problem with that fear is that anyone who already has it, it's way harder to overcome it the other way. If I was in a place where I thought, I cannot bring ideas to this guy because he's going to get upset, even if he told me, I want your ideas, I've been working on myself, I'm not going to be upset, it'll take a lot more for me to believe that that's the case before I can even start accomplishing anything again. So in your business, look for signs of fear anywhere, between people, between managers. Anything that can cause fear will get in your way, and it has to be eliminated and watched constantly. Even if you eliminate fear, in a year, give it 3 months, there's going to be more that creeps up somewhere and somehow. Never stop looking for fear. Treat it like a disease. Now let's talk about the extra trouble that comes up when you have multiple levels of leadership. So all of the things that I've gone over so far are fairly easy to overcome on a team where you have, one person reporting to one person. If I have a good idea and my boss likes it, perfect, we can do my idea. Now, if I work and I have a team lead, and my team lead has a supervisor who has a manager, who has a director, who answers to the CEO, what we now have to realize is that any idea I bring to my boss, they have to believe in enough to bring to their boss, and they have to believe in enough to bring to their boss. And when it goes in reverse, where the expectation from the top is that we are not making mistakes in this company, then the person below them has to answer for the problems that the person below them makes, and so on. So it becomes very quickly this weird case where I, at the bottom rung, if I have an idea that doesn't go well, I'm going to be in extra trouble because my boss will be in trouble, because their boss will be in trouble, because every level that you add creates extra difficulty. So it has to be extremely, extremely clear that all of these expectations are set right from the top. I did work at a fairly large company that had a lot of these sorts of levels, and while my direct leader really believed in the value of what we wanted to do and try, their boss didn't, because they didn't want to have to answer for our mistakes. And when it went up to the top of the line, the CEO of that company really only liked his own ideas. So he didn't really care what people at the bottom were doing as long as it was along the lines of what he was doing. So we didn't have that buy-in from the top, which meant, again, down the line, everyone's afraid of their own job, so they're not going to take risks on the ideas that people might have. So what can you do with all of this information? If you are an organization that already has culture problems, you are face to face with a very difficult uphill battle. It can be beaten, but it's going to take a lot of work. So the first thing you want to do is start to try and identify and tackle very small areas. So first and foremost, you need to express to every level of your organization that culture is something that's very important and needs to be worked on. You need to set up what that means for you. So if it again becomes an expectation where everyone at every level is expected to give ideas, feedback, criticism, that's kind of the first step that shows everyone I might be allowed to do this. Again, being that this is an uphill battle, you might already have employees that don't believe this. You know, they might think they just read a blog or watched a video that said you need to do this to improve your culture. But if they don't actually believe and support it, nobody's going to want to try. So you're gonna have to keep at it with that. And then start to use kind of other small things like setting up weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly one-on-one check-ins. So this is between any single employee and their direct manager, supervisor, whoever they report to. At first, this is probably going to feel to people like a waste of time. The idea behind one-on-ones, and there's a ton of stuff you can look into with one-on-ones, I guess this is just my perspective on them, is that they create a safe place. They should create a safe place where somebody can talk to their superior directly and have that time where there's no expectations of you like wasting their time or bringing an idea to them, or anytime they want to talk to you, you feel like you're in trouble. So when you first start having one-on-ones, and I went through this myself, I thought they were a huge waste of time when my boss would bring me aside because they would just, try to tell me random things that I could be doing better, or it wasn't until I started to understand that I was supposed to be bringing up better ideas that I started getting use out of these one-on-one meetings. So you really want to continue to reinforce, and even when it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, make sure that that time keeps coming up, because when an employee finally does have an idea, you need them to have something to look forward to where they can bring it up, rather than being like, should I try to set up a meeting with my boss? I don't know, they're pretty busy. Are they going to be upset that I'm wasting their time? I don't know if this idea is even good. Because it makes a huge difference. You, at whatever level you are at, you need to show vulnerability and accept responsibility and ownership. So even if you are the boss at the very top, you are probably the most difficult to see the mistakes of. So you're not reporting to anybody, which means that if you mess up an email, forget a due date, people might not notice that. So then there kind of becomes a stigma that the boss doesn't make mistakes, so everybody else is expected not to either. As a boss, you need to go way out of your way to show that you do make mistakes and you do have these vulnerabilities. You've had ideas that failed too. You are just as human as everyone else. You also need at every level to be able to take ownership. If something goes wrong, your culture, as an example, if your culture has gone wrong, you can't blame the people at the bottom rung who are gossiping. They are gossiping, either because they're a bad culture fit, which again, we won't talk about that today. Very likely they're gossiping because they feel like they cannot express their distaste or problems with how things are going. So if you can accept ownership over as many things as possible, other people will start to do so too, and you can start to figure out mistakes aren't problems. They're just ways to move forward. You can say, here's what I did, here's the role I played in that. Here's what we can do to improve it moving forward. And the last one on my list here is to eliminate punishment. So what this actually means for you is going to be very different depending on what your organization looks like. But nobody should feel like they're going to be written up for making mistakes. Nobody should feel like they're going to get fired for speaking up against their, maybe not against, but criticizing their manager. When that expectation is gone, we're a lot more freed to kind of make those choices we want. Punishment, again, really only reinforces that you didn't listen to what I said. But if I keep making the same problem, sure, it could be my fault that I keep making the same problem, but is there anything in our process that we could improve that would stop me from making those mistakes in the first place? Those are the things that we want to look for, not what is that person doing wrong. You want to say, what can I fix about any of these issues? So, to wrap up, there's lots of things that can cause culture issues. The biggest ones are trust and fear. If your team doesn't feel like they can improve things, they're not going to try. And so I want you to take all of this away, figure out how you can make a plan to start getting things rolling. As these things start to improve, you'll find that employees will start picking up on it. They will start giving you a ton of ideas, and things will just go up and up and up from there. So that's all I have to say about that today. If you have any questions about any of this or any other points that you would like to add, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, if you're watching this on YouTube, please comment, like, subscribe. Tell me all those awesome things that you want me to talk about, and I will make sure that it gets done. As always, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.